Hello, Thistledown Gang! Remember this thing on your screen if you've already been here. If not, hello. It is absolutely fantastic to have you here. Welcome, please stay, and by that I mean subscribe. But back to, do you remember the thing on the screen? And of course you're also welcome if you've already been here. Yes, exactly. It's that music box from my tent hall about 100 years ago. I finally got around painting it, and I filmed the entire ordeal for your amusement. And as a reminder for myself that these things always take longer than I expect. We start out with this here thing, plain and simple. The box is made of heavy paperboard with a small plastic drawer, and in it's made from this velvety vinyl stuff. I harshly judge the manufacturer for the fact that the ballerina on the inside is wearing a pink tutu while dancing to the main theme of Swan Lake, where the main role, Odette, traditionally wears a white dress and a very distinctive feather headdress. In fact, that was what sparked the initial idea of changing the thing up a bit in the first place. I started with removing the bits of hardware on the front. They don't spark joy, they aren't pretty or sturdy enough to do anything with afterwards, and taking off the sticker on the drawer with a surprising lot of lighter fluid and scraping, and I fear I must report that it was far less satisfying than I had hoped. I then sanded over the whole lot to make my paint stick better later on. After sanding and filling some of the holes left by the hardware with leftover wood spackle that you might already know from my ebook cover video, I covered the box in a generous coat of gesso. Gesso is, and it does not speak for the competence of neither my teachers at art school or my professors in my uni art classes, that I had to learn about the stuff from a YouTuber who paints cute characters onto everything for a living. It's a primer to use under the actual paint on canvas, wood, or in my case, colourful cardboard. It's made from chalk or gypsum and white pigment with some sort of binder. Traditionally animal glue, but mine is on an acrylic basis, so no rabbits had to lose their hide for this. It is quite absorbent, so the paint sticks well and dries a bit fast as well. I wanted my finished music box to sit on little legs, but in order to be able to still use the drawer after they were attached, I needed the base of the box to be either thicker or wider, and I decided, why not both? I drew around the base on some thick paperboard, which you also already know from the ebook video, added 1/2 centimeter to each side, cut 2 of those, and then used white craft glue to stick them together. Add some weight to that, in this case my sewing machine, and let it set. Let me introduce you to the second protagonist of the series, the little dancer. I think in French, very young ballerinas are known as petits rats, but I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look that up. I've been wanting to give a makeover to a kitschy figurine for ages, but never found the right thing or even knew what to do with it afterwards, because I do like painting on things and painting things in general, but then afterwards I don't really want to own them, and that's unfortunate. So when I found this little ballerina, however, I knew that she'd be a perfect combination with a music box, and her whole posture and moulding just looked like a very good base for me to try repainting something like her for the first time. But back to the new base for the box. I sanded the paperboard slab to make it a bit smoother and stuck my box onto the board with all-purpose glue, put on more weight and waited some more. The waiting time is really, really bad because I get waiting paralysis and then I can't really do anything while I'm waiting. That is really annoying. Except for maybe also work on the project, but when everything on the project is currently drying, it's just really annoying. I also finally removed Odette on the inside. The girl needs a makeover anyway. Then I taped off the edges. Taping off is terribly useful, but I hate it because I never quite get it right and it always gets messy, and got out the chalk paint. I am very fond of this specific kind of blue. I used it to paint our fridge and it makes such a nice kind of dusty base for a starry sky, for example. Very old-fashioned somehow, very much Victorian Dickensian theatre background things. I found that the paint goes very well with the velvety stuff inside the box because it has a matte finish, and if you water it down it bleeds right into the material and gives it a fairly even coverage. It makes it look like the stuff was blue velvet from the beginning, and that is exactly what I was going for. Thinning the paint also makes it easier to get in all of the tiny nooks and crannies of that jewelry setup here. And apparently sanding the paperboard wasn't enough for me. I had to smooth out the base with wood filling too. You can't see it, but I also did that for the line where the box and the base meet. That stuff is really great. It can be worked with water, it's quite sturdy. I think it is waterproof once it's dry, and unless you confuse it for sculpting clay, a little goes a long way. I added another few coats of gesso to even everything out and went on to the actual painting. But only the base layer. The more complicated decorative paint gets its own video, because that took so long, it would be unfair to myself to just cram it into some other video. This is self-care, okay? Thank you for watching, by the way. Now, of course I didn't have the exact color I wanted, but mixing up paint is one of my favorite bits about working with color in a way. It turned out a bit too bluish. I had to warm it up a little bit with some mustard yellow, and I went for a sage green as a base color. I usually get my paint from either the dollar store for things like white and black and the base colors anyway, and then I sometimes go for more muted specialty, and please read that in air quotes, specialty colors like mustard yellow or that bluish green that I used for this specific color at shops like Søstrene Grene, or even actually the artist's supply shop. And because I haven't put enough stuff on there yet, I also cut a small base for the little dancer to sit on. I figured out the middle of the lid and then repeated the whole glue and speckle routine. I think a little raised stage is exactly the thing she needed to elevate her, literally and figuratively. The painting of the inside had warped the cardboard innards of the box a tiny bit, so I glued them back on and stuck them down with clothes pegs. Honestly, clothes pegs are among my favorite undervalued tools ever. They are so useful, especially if you work with paper and glue a lot, like book binding and things like this, apparently. I then slathered on another thick coat of my paint, trying to get it to even out some of the smaller blemishes. There was this one thing in the front that you might have seen me trying to make better or even out earlier, and I only made it worse. There's a German word for that, verschlimmbessern. It's a very good word, and I don't really have a decent counterpart for that in English. And this concludes the first part of the Music Box miniseries. Next time we'll have a look at miniature painting but make it ballet and toughening up that little dancer a bit. I hope you'll tune in again, and until then I wish you an absolute wonderful time. Farewell.